Good morning, y'all. I'm very glad to be with y'all today, for us to be together for this fourth Buda Juneteenth celebration. For Juneteenth, the oldest established, the oldest celebration of black emancipation in the United States. It's exciting, y'all. Started right here in Texas is right. It's hot, for sure. I think y'all probably noticed that. I think there's going to be a reenactment later. So I think the idea is to make you feel like a summer's day in humid Galveston. Feel like you're there. Get that salt water dripping down your face. I think that's the idea. I'm Evan Ture. I'm a city councilman here in Buda, and very glad. So welcome to Buda's Juneteenth celebration. I want to talk about history. It comes up in these times. It comes up during celebrations like this. But I want to talk about why study history. Why study history? Y'all probably heard quotes or phrases before like, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Not a bad quote. There's a lot packed in there. Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. That one took me like 4 times hearing it to understand and get past the initial chuckle. Some good sentiment there as well. I miss the mark often, like the idea captured in this next one. Henry Ford said, history is bunk. Some live they live so presently. And I do this all too often. Such a strong emphasis on the present that it's an unhealthy overemphasis on the present to the exclusion of the past. As if there's no context. As if everything we do is in a vacuum when it's not. Your 7th grade teacher might have had an answer for why we study history. Something like, 'cause I said so, essays due tomorrow. Simple as that, move on. Sometimes that's as far as we think about why study history. So I want to talk about that today. Today I want to tell you that we should study history because it situates us within this grand narrative of humanity. We were made to be historical beings, I think. We live in time. We don't have timelessness as a quality. We don't have a time machine, or a lot of things would be different. I guarantee that. I'm massively paraphrasing here. I'm basically just taking little bits from this person's work. But I think it's in tune with this message. There's a Pulitzer Prize winning historian, David McCullough. He talks about history this way. History tells us who we are, where we are, what this place is like, and how we got here, how it came to be this way. History is knowing yourself and those around you. You want to know more about yourself and those around you? Study history. Jamar Tisby has a book. He's an author who put it this way in one of his books, How to Fight Racism. We need to study history not simply to know more about the past, but to know more about ourselves. History is about identity. Rightly remembering our communal stories is a way of situating ourselves within a broader narrative. History tells us who and where we came from, how the people and events before us have shaped who we are now, and what kind of actions we need to take. He talks specifically about race relations, quote, to learn history is to learn context. Like the men of Issachar in the Bible who understood the times in 1 Chronicles 12:32, if you want to understand the present, you must first understand the past. When a white police officer killed Mike Brown, a black teenager, and hashtag Black Lives Matter, a national rallying cry, I, like many others, sought to understand the situation. How did a predominantly white police force come to patrol a predominantly black neighborhood? Why was the community of Ferguson so segregated in the first place? As I endeavored to understand our present-day context, I found that historians often have the most helpful information. They explain things like the history of redlining and restrictive covenants that relegated black people to certain neighborhoods. I learned from historians that the past is a key to understanding and fighting racism today. End quote. We study history because we are human. We live in a time, in a place, and it situates us. So then how do we study history? It's a huge topic. I don't have the expertise or the time to unpack it. I am no expert here. So I'm just going to bring two thoughts. Just two thoughts. And these thoughts actually, they come, they're rooted in the Protestant Reformation. It comes from way back. And the people of the Protestant Reformation really love Latin. So I'm going to say some phrases. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm going to try. Here we go. Ad fontes and sefer reformanda. Ad fontes and semper reformanda. First on how ad fontes. It just means to the sources. Go to the sources. Go to the original sources. As much as you can. Hear the actual stories. See the realities. The raw materials of history are facts. And from there, you build context, there's interpretation, all these things. But go to the sources. Don't be caught only looking at headlines and summaries. And to be able to go to the sources, we have to preserve history. Preserve important things. Preserve certain structures. Activate them. And then listen. Listen to primary sources. There are folks today who have stories. We all have stories. We all have lives to share. So listen to primary sources. Listen to their stories. Listen to the mothers and the fathers and the brothers and the sisters. Stories are so different from statistics, aren't they? So let's go to the sources and preserve them. Second, on how to study history, I'll try this Latin again. Semper reformanda. Always to be reformed. It doesn't mean everything needs to change. The intention is not to say that everything needs to change. It means that you should never ever get to a place where you say, I have this completely on lockdown. I've got this taken care of. There's no possible way that I've screwed up here or that I could be wrong. The church with this mindset during that time and afterwards in the Reformed churches with this mindset, they were saying, this side of the Lord, this side of the final day, I will never have it all right. In fact, because we have sin and because sin pollutes and it blinds, we have areas we even think we're right about, think we have taken care of. I don't mess up in that way. Where we're not right. So it's recognizing that. In fact, the Reformation churches weren't just saying this about individuals, they were saying this about the church itself, the institution, the system. Semper reformanda. Really, it was Ecclesia reformata semper reformanda. The church reformed, always be reforming. Always to be reformed. Because the system was not fully right. It's still not fully right. It's a wonderful outlook for any institution. There's a brilliant example in the Juneteenth Faith and Freedom film, the documentary, the one Mr. Yaki Smith directed, where they're talking about the churches that got established up in Houston after Juneteenth. These formerly enslaved people left Galveston. They established churches in Houston, a new community with education systems and financial support systems, beautiful things. But also how some churches, especially in English colonies, were using the slave Bible to keep black people down, to keep them from rising up. Semper reformanda, always to be reformed. No person, no system, no institution is without blemish. So let's be okay about talking about both the good and the bad. By the way, Yaki is our keynote speaker later on, so I'm excited for some of the things that are going to be dropped on our ears. I'm excited for listening up for that, so stick around. My charge to myself, I'll end with this. My charge to myself, an invitation for y'all at this Juneteenth celebration and into the future, study our history. Study the history of race relations in America, in Texas, in Buda, here. Go to the sources, and let's preserve them. Let's respect and hear stories from those that have gone before us, if they're willing to tell us, and if we're willing to listen. And then engage with it with a mindset of semper reformanda, always to be reformed. When you hear the reading of General Order Number 3 later, the order that was read in Galveston on Juneteenth, let it situate you. Let it help you understand where we're at just 158 years later. Engage with it. When you hear Mayor Urbanovsky and what he's speaking about, history right here in Buda, engage with it. I'm glad to celebrate with y'all. 4th Buda Juneteenth celebration. Many more. I'm excited. What a day.